Hey everyone, welcome back to day 2 of my 12 Days of OT Christmas series. Today's video is going to be something that I actually recorded a few months back, and I never uploaded it. The subject matter is a little bit more serious, but I think it's a very important conversation that we need to be having. And not to spoil anything, but the story that I tell does have a happy ending. I was able to meet with the family that I'm going to talk to you about, and we resolved our issues, and the child and family are now receiving services. So that story does have a happy ending. But again, this is just a video that I sat down and recorded spontaneously. It was almost like a one-take video. I hope you enjoy it, and I will see you tomorrow. Hey everyone, what's going on? Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about something a little bit unexpected, something that I did not plan to make a video about, a little bit spur of the moment, but I'm making this video because of an experience that I had yesterday, something that I want to share with you guys, and that is workplace violence. I know. That's a little alarming. You probably weren't expecting to talk about workplace violence. But if you're new here, my name is Arwen. I'm a pediatric occupational therapist, and I wanted to speak to y'all about this today because I think it's something that not many people maybe are aware of or understand the seriousness of workplace violence for healthcare professionals. I had a small taste of this yesterday when I was completing an evaluation, and it made me think about it a little bit more. So I thought I could share my thoughts with you and maybe bring more light to workplace violence that is happening more often with healthcare professionals. So I am part of our national organization, so AOTA, and I receive quarterly newsletters and articles from them from OT practice, and this is actually from May of 2019, but I think it is still relevant. I don't think workplace violence has stopped since this article was published, but in it addresses workplace violence specifically related to occupational therapy, but in the healthcare profession in general. So according to OSHA, healthcare workers are 4 times more likely to experience some sort of workplace violence than private industry. So we are more likely to experience violence more frequently than someone who works at a bank or someone who works at a lawyer's office or maybe someone who works at the grocery store or a restaurant. So private industry versus the healthcare industry is how I believe they're classifying it. There's also different classifications of violent interactions. So, you know, I could be attacked by a coworker, and that would be different than having an interaction with a client or a customer. But according to this article, 80% of the reported incidences happen and occur between a provider, a therapist, a doctor, a nurse, and a patient, client, or customer. And I am going to read you this definition from the World Health Organization, where they define workplace violence as, and I quote, incidents where staff are abused, threatened, or assaulted in circumstances related to their work, including commuting to and from work, involving explicit or implicit challenge to their safety, well-being, or health, end quote. They consider physical, psychological, verbal attacks, bullying, sexual harassment, racial harassment, all within the classification of workplace violence. So I will say I have experienced it as an occupational therapist. I wanted to share my experiences and talk a little bit about that today, and kind of address it as a whole as well. I do want to say that nurses probably take the brunt and experience the most workplace violence of any medical professional. The type of care and interaction that they have with patients just leads to more opportunity, leads to more frustration, and but more likelihood and chances and opportunity to have those more negative patient interactions. Emergency department for sure. I feel like they also take a brunt, probably the majority of violent experiences, either verbal or physical, assault or encounters. But very often we're working with individuals who are in a very vulnerable situation. They're either experiencing something traumatic or new or different with an injury, an illness, a diagnosis, they're in pain, and these often lead to lashing out behaviors that you probably wouldn't experience in other professions. So I can see why it does occur more likely just based on the situation that these clients and patients are in. It can be extremely frustrating and terrifying, and it leads to some terrible things. I have heard terrible stories of nurses and doctors being attacked. So it is definitely a legitimate concern. So with that said, I will share my experience from yesterday, and then I'll talk a little bit at some other past experiences that I've had, and then talk a little bit about what I do to keep myself safe as an occupational therapist, and what maybe we should do going forward to bring more awareness to this issue that's ongoing. So yesterday, it was Friday, so I was not planning to spend my Saturday talking about workplace violence, believe me. But yesterday I was completing an evaluation, and prior to most initial evaluations, we meet as a team and we discuss the child and their family, and we already kind of have a plan in mind of maybe what we're going to recommend, or what direction we're going to go therapy-wise if they do qualify. And so based on the information that we were given, I last minute felt like it was the best thing to do to not complete the evaluation face-to-face. For the past couple months, all the work that I've been doing has been via telehealth, so all my evaluations have been virtual, but we are resuming face-to-face, in-person, in-home evaluations. And based on the information I was given, I actually decided the night before, I spoke to the coordinator that was going to be working with me on this case, and I said, you know what, I don't want to go to this home. It was actually a motel. I don't think it's right. I think we need to do virtual. And so we did. It was difficult. And after that, we received a phone call from a very, very upset parent, yelling and saying some things to us. They were frustrated and upset because we had just told them that their child has a delay. And I understand to hear that your child has a delay can be very, very emotionally tolling if you weren't expecting that. So I understand where they're coming from. And I don't know if I would have classified my experience as verbal abuse. I feel like that term gets used very loosely. But I will say, I got a little flutter in my heart. I definitely had that flight or fight response where it's like, okay, whoa, this person's coming at me a little bit stronger than I expected. But all I could think was, I am so glad that I did not go to do that evaluation in person. And that's just one minor experience. I will say I am incredibly grateful and blessed that I have not experienced much of that with the current position that I have, doing home health and going into people's homes. I think for the most part, people respect me and they want me in their home. There's always usually a legitimate reason for me to be in their home doing the evaluation. But I do go into different areas where maybe I might be a threat or I might look different than those in the community. But I try to portray myself with confidence, and that's actually one thing we'll talk about at the end. So that was my experience yesterday that prompted me to think about this. In the past, at my prior workplace, I was working at a pediatric outpatient, so still peds, with clients ranging, from 3 to young adult. And in that setting, I will say I definitely experienced more violence. I have been hit, I have been kicked, I have had things thrown at me, I have been spit on. And, these are all individuals, these are all clients who have autism or who have cognitive disabilities or have developmental delays. They have difficulties with self-regulation. There's an underlying reason, and usually those were things that were being addressed in therapy. I will tell you 2 specific experiences that come to mind. One was with myself and one was another therapist, but I was there and it was pretty bad. So one with myself, both, and both times it occurred when the owner of the clinic entrusted me and another therapist to treat and run the clinic while she was not there. So I don't know what went wrong. But I was treating a 6-year-old with autism, and something, it was the most minor little thing, but this child was prone to having outburst of anger, and that was something that we were working on, was if something didn't go right, we need to be able to self-regulate and not throw things and hit and do that sort of stuff. And I probably pushed him too far, and it was pretty bad. This child was kicking over furniture in the waiting room, was very, very inconsolable. I mean, and again, this is a 6-year-old, right? Like how dangerous could a 6-year-old be, right? Very. And if you don't know, I'm a very small person. I am not even 5 foot tall. So many of my clients are larger than me, most of the time. I mean, if I treat adults, then yeah, they're always going to be bigger than me. So this child was destroying the waiting room, pushing over couches, pushing over chairs. The mom was not able to console him. So that was very intense, and that one has always stuck with me because I felt responsible in that I should have used better therapeutic judgment in the activities that we were doing, and I also felt like I should have been able to help calm better. And I felt like I just froze. I'm like, I don't know what to do. I really don't know what to do. The office manager was there and she was paralyzed as well. So that I think for me was probably one of the most intense that I've experienced relating to me. And then another incident, once again, our clinic owner, she has a life too. She wants to go see her family. So it was just myself and another occupational therapist. There was no one else there. It was me, another OT, and she was treating a child in a separate room. I was in another back room, and I heard her scream, and I came running, and she had been bit by the child in her arm, and I mean like deep biting, like he would not let go. And this child was 2 or under. And I I don't think I froze as much this time because the OT was paralyzed. She was crying, her arm was bleeding, but I had to take care of the child. So I was attending to the child, making sure that they were okay, and she was trying to dress her wound. I think that was more traumatic, seeing my coworker and my friend go through that. Yeah, I think it messed with her a little bit. But those are my two big workplace violence experiences. And those were with children. So you can imagine, you can imagine how insane some of these and how horrific some things that can happen with adults who are sick, who are medicated, who are on drugs that are causing them to not be in their right mind whatsoever, and how that can lead to physical assault and violence, especially against those nurses and those doctors in those emergency and acute care situations. When I was doing my field work in acute care, there was one incident. And I should know what the codes are. I guess every hospital is different, but there was one incident where they called a specific code, and my clinical supervisor at the time was a male. He was a male OT, and he was on one of the responding teams to help restrain an individual that was trying to harm someone else in the hospital. I didn't actually observe that. I saw everyone run out, and they took care of the situation, and I kept documenting. So over the course of 4 years, I've had a couple of incidences, not very many, like I said, thankfully, with the current position that I have. But I do want to quickly talk about ways that I keep myself safe. Like I said, I don't know if I mentioned before, but usually before COVID, anytime we would go to a home to conduct an evaluation, we would go as a 2-person group. So that always made me feel more comfortable because, again, you're going to a complete stranger's home who you've never met in a neighborhood you've never been to. So that is one safety measure that you can take is if you know that an individual or a patient has already been combative or has already shown signs of being abusive, take a partner, take a buddy. If it takes more time and it takes them away, you need to do what you need to do to keep yourself safe. So going with someone, telling someone where you're going to be, what time you're going to be there, what time you should be done, and if you're not done, if you aren't out of the home, then they'll know that. So telling someone where you're going to be, what time you're going to be there at, and when you should be done. And if you're in a clinic setting, bringing someone into the room with you, not just for yourself, but so you also have a witness of what the patient interaction looks like and why you need that other person as backup and as a witness. And then I mentioned briefly being confident. So like I said, I'm a very small woman, but I try when I go into neighborhoods that maybe aren't the safest or places that I'm unfamiliar. I try to walk with confidence. I wear my badge. I try to look professional. I greet everyone. I say hello. I have walked past people that are smoking weed, I don't care about all that. I just want to make it to the house. You are very nice. You acknowledge, you want to let them know that you're a part of their community. You're not there, if, whatever you're doing is your business. That's not what I'm there for. I am here to go to this home and treat this child. So I think if you have that sort of persona and you are confident versus looking around all scared and creepily and being more timid, I think people can pick up on that very easily. I always, you know, I always have my phone and my keys, you know, in my hand until I reach my destination safely. And I don't want to scare anyone. You know, I don't want anyone to be afraid to join the medical profession because they're afraid that they're going to experience this. I just think you need to be aware. I want there to be an awareness and alertness. If you're educated and you're aware, then I think it's less likely to occur, or you'll be better able to know how you're going to respond to that type of situation. And taking those safety measures, taking those precautions to keep yourself safe will reduce your risk of having those types of violent encounters, for sure. There's probably a lot more detail that I could go into this. I know that there is research that is being done around this. People are looking into the workplace violence and how to minimize it. But just based on one phone call yesterday, it just got me thinking about all these things, and I want all of my fellow students and OTs and therapists and nurses and doctors, I want everyone to be safe. So again, I hope that doesn't scare you or throw you off your track for pursuing OT, but I just want y'all to be prepared and have a realistic outlook of all the possibilities of encounters that you'll have with patients. Like I said, I think as OTs, our risk is usually pretty minimal. Again, it's always going to depend on what setting you work in. I think in the acute setting, your risk is much higher. You know, I'm not sure what the increase in risk is in different settings. I think that would be a great thing to look up and to research, and I could probably do that, or you could do that as well. You know, looking at school setting, home health, inpatient rehab, acute care, skilled nursing, all those differences. But I hope you learned something. I hope we can continue this conversation. I hope all of y'all are staying safe out there. Now we've got another risk of COVID-19. So add that to the things of workplace safety to be aware of. But again, thank you so much for spending some time with me. Hopefully we can continue this conversation, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.